This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Oh my gosh, I caught something, you guys. I caught something. Shout out to all of you guys. Come on in. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist with additional training in statement analysis. Today, we're going to be going through David's journal. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised, and David Anthony Burke is innocent until proven guilty, and everything I'm sharing is my opinion. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. You can tell me what city, what state, what country, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So this is a shout out to NJAS for this. Did you know that Wikipedia has David's manager listed as a suspect? Look at this, you guys. Let me pull this up. This is crazy. So we know Rob M testified. We never heard anything about Josh Marshall testifying. And seeing this made me wonder why. So this is Wikipedia talks about Celeste Rivas, and this is short. And shout out to Deanna. Actually, is the one who sent me this. It says suspects: David Burke, and the other one says Burke's manager. David Burke. Okay, we knew that. That's D4VD. Burke's manager. Which manager is a suspect? Is this a misprint on Wikipedia? What's going on here? How do we have the managers listed as a suspect? And the journal gives us some important clues too. So let's begin with information about David's managers. We're going to try to figure out which one is listed as a suspect. We know that Rob M was testifying and his attorney was present, and we've had speculation that maybe he was testifying under some type of an immunity deal. But you know who we haven't heard anything about that was testifying is Josh Marshall. Why not? Where is he? We haven't heard anything from Josh Marshall since he posted that bizarre denial of him not having anything to do with David on a day-to-day basis in a comment section of a TikTok. So shout out to Deanna and NJAS and Master Death Hancock and Michael L. Cole for sending me tips this week. So which manager is it? Well, we heard from TMZ about this conversation that Rob M, that's Rob Morgenroth, had in the hall, where he was complaining about the DA being pushy about why he didn't call the police. So did he get an immunity deal? Was he originally a suspect? Or have we not heard anything from Josh Marshall because he's a suspect? Or is this just simply some kind of an error on the Wikipedia page? Let me know what you think. So we've heard allegedly that there was this visit to Department 123. So Rob M, it sounds like he may have gotten an immunity deal in exchange for his testimony, allegedly, in my opinion. But the other manager, Josh Marshall, made the bizarre denial in the TikTok comment section. He's never conducted a single interview with mainstream media. He's never sat down with any journalist to answer any questions about the fact that his name was on the lease and that he was given access to the security cameras on the mansion by the mansion's owner, according to SF Investigates Steve Fisher. And we're also hearing rumors that Josh Marshall has moved his business offshore to Puerto Rico. Now, this move could be simply to avoid paying his fair share of taxes here in the United States, but the move could also be to avoid being sued by the family of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. But the Wikipedia post could also just be some weird glitch or typo too. What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? Because how did his name end up being listed as a suspect or I'm not his name, but manager? It wasn't Josh Marshall. They didn't name which manager. It just says manager. So you will also recall, and maybe you haven't heard about this, but let me share this. This is Skinny. Let me take this down for a second. So this is the bizarre Wikipedia page post that, says suspects, David Burke and Burke's manager. That's who's listed under the suspects on Wikipedia. So I don't know, you guys, but this is Skinny from the Nine. He's on TikTok. You can see here he's got 16,000 plus followers. Let me show this one. Let me grab it. Hold on. And he is saying that Josh Marshall swindled him out of money. I'm paraphrasing here, but let me just show you who it is. Okay, so this is Skinny from the Nine. This is his TikTok account. He's got 16,000 followers. And so, he says Josh Marshall stole from him. So is this true? And so the sourcing on this is Remy Urenga, who is with the really good group called D4VD. And get this. Okay, so that's Skinny from the Nine. I showed you who Skinny from the Nine was. And this is Rob Marshall with his wife. And it says, quote, American rapper Skinny from the Nine made a post on TikTok last month. And this was posted by Remy Urenga 14 days ago, who's, by the way, has done some great research on this case. But American rapper Skinny from the Nine made a post on TikTok last month claiming Josh Marshall, aka J Mogul, pocketed $250,000, so $250,000 meant for Skinny on the Nine in 2018, and used it to start his Mogul Vision management company that went on to represent D4VD. Skinny from the Nine has his own personal struggles and legal troubles over the years, but continues to pursue his music independently. And in case you forgot, Josh Marshall is the Mogul Vision executive who claims to be hands off with his clients while trying to distance himself from D4VD and the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, even though D4VD and his entire family went to Josh Marshall's fairly intimate and very posh wedding in Italy. Yes, that's the same Josh Marshall photographed at the Fonda Theater in Los Angeles at the D4VD show, sitting next to D4VD's mother. And Celeste is in the balcony, so with Josh Marshall. So, yeah. And this is him with Skinny from the Nine. This is Josh Marshall with his wife. I guess they're on a yacht. This is their very posh wedding. And this is Josh Marshall right here at the concert at the Fonda Theater, where I've showed you pictures. If you didn't see the video I posted yesterday, it's worth looking at afterwards. I show you pictures proving that Josh Marshall and Rob M were backstage with Celeste Rivas Hernandez. So let's continue on because there's like so much to unpack here. So is Josh Marshall stealing? Did he steal from this client? Is this a misunderstanding, or is this guy just making it up? And why is Josh Marshall moving his assets offshore? Well, more great research from Remy Urenga at the D4VD group. So this is some receipts here that Remy posted. And you can see Mogul Vision is a Puerto Rico foreign limited liability company filed November 14th of 2024. It's listed as active, and there's a file number there. And you can see Joshua Marshall is one of the registered agents on this account. So I think that's very, very interesting. And then they have a business address there. So Josh Marshall, it says D4VD's manager and founder of the Mogul Vision Management Company, has filed various LLC business license registrations in the year he started the company. There are variations on the Mogul Vision name, as well as variations with respect to registered agents used and business addresses used. Not unusual for an LLC. But what is unusual is the most recent business filings made by Josh Marshall for his Mogul Vision company, which is still active with his registration of the company in Puerto Rico in November of 2024. Why is this interesting? Puerto Rico has become a destination for U.S. businesses seeking to avoid federal taxes. It's a legal tax haven for the rich who don't want to pay taxes. So just thought I would throw that out there too. And now let's go through David's journal. So this was posted in the D4VD idiots group by Agreeable Sir 5123. So I'm going to do a statement analysis on this. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a journalist with additional training in statement analysis. So let's go through this together. This is the welcome page. It says, I started this journey as a homeschooled kid making music for Fortnite montages, never imagining where it would take me. Over time, I drew inspiration from everything around me. And you guys know Withered. He starts with the white rose is alive, and then it's got thorns, so it's it's an evil white rose, and now the white rose is has died. So he said it's beautiful watching you guys connect to the music, and most importantly, connect to me. And as I've shared with you, not all narcissists are sociopaths, but for sure, all sociopaths are narcissistic. And we're going to hear a lot of references to himself in this. The last 2 years have been a journey since I left Houston. New places, new people, and new experiences have shaped me in ways I've never expected. This album is the first time I've truly opened up about my own life, my own stories. It's raw, it's real, and it's me. I believe you, David. I do. I believe you. Thank you for listening, for connecting, and for being part of this journey. I hope these songs mean as much to you as they do to me. I love you all infinitely. XOXO D4VD. So track 1 is called Atomic Land. And we're going to go through the statements on this together. So grab yourself some coffee, get comfy. And let's dig into this. So we've got this welcome to Withered. You can hear David repeatedly portraying himself throughout this journal that he's got as the victim. And he's making, and we know this is probably about Celeste, allegedly, in my opinion. But you'll also recall the interview where he talks about this journal that I played for you in another live stream. And by the way, this journal was sent to me by producer Michael L. Cole. So shout out to Michael. So we're going to start with the page 1, which we just did. And looking at that page 1 of the Withered, let me just back it up for a second. So jumping, what just really jumps out at me, there's a lot, we're going to dig in a lot deeper than this, but it just jumps out at me that he has had this series, and you could tell that David views himself as very deep and very mysterious, which I think really appeals to his teenage fans. But the other thing that really bounces out to me is his use of the word me repeatedly. His focus isn't on his fans. His focus isn't on other people. It's all about him. And in my opinion, it reeks of grandiosity and David's sense of superiority over all of us. So then we can go to page 1 of Atomic. So this is track 1. It says Atomic is a song I wrote about the implications of delusion in a relationship that's just starting out or rekindling. Okay, well, we know this is probably about Celeste, allegedly, in my opinion. When you meet someone or start to gain feelings for a person, I can't even read this right. About them suddenly becoming more to you. Your dependence on the thought of that person often outweighs the actual experiences you have with them, often leading to disappointment we bring on ourselves. And it is completely our fault for expecting an outcome of a connection because of the amount of dopamine your infatuation produces. Not his, yours. Which then leads, so I think that's interesting. He's talking about not my infatuation, but yours. So some distancing language. When then leads to irrational, I can't read this, and unrealistic views of what you and the other person actually are. Well, yeah, because Celeste was just 13 years old, 14 years old. So let's look at this. He talks about dopamine, which I think is really interesting. Perpetrators often typically have huge dopamine surges through self-reinforcing cycles of predatory behavior that function similarly to a chemical addiction. And their dopamine reward systems can be triggered by multiple things, including stalking, this initial phase of selecting and tracking victims, mimicking the ancestral hunting behaviors that we needed, creating an appetite that builds tension and releases dopamine. And I believe that David would have enjoyed the process of enticing Celeste away from her family. I think he would have enjoyed the entrapment and the pretending to be romantically interested in her to get her into his web. And I believe that David did dangle and make promises to Celeste that he had no intention of keeping, and that there would have been a certain level of duping delight, dopamine release when he was able to get Celeste to abandon her own family and run away to him. So he would have enjoyed getting control over him. He would have enjoyed the games because, as we know, sociopaths like games. I'm not saying he's a sociopath. I'm not diagnosing him. I'm just using it as an adjective. So the atomic portion of the journal is also significant because the act of doing away with someone also releases dopamine. The act of doing away with somebody triggers a massive surge of dopamine and similar to what you would get on like some hard prescription medications, right? Like Vicodin or something like that. Many SKs describe a quote body rush or complete pleasure comparable to the effects of substances that can be illegal or they can be prescribed by your doctor. So for many, the manifestation of absolute dominance over another person is the primary psychological payoff that activates the brain's reward centers. And I believe David did exert power and control over Celeste. Ultimately, I think it was his downfall. He couldn't let go of her, which is why she was found inside the front trunk of his Tesla, which he parked on Bluebird Avenue for at least a second time. We know it was ticketed at least one other time. And ultimately, that was his downfall. But I think that Celeste was depending on David for her food, for her shelter, for her sense of safety, for her love. So emotionally and physically, she was completely dependent on David. And so keeping items from victims, like trophies, is also a way to release dopamine. So I just think it's interesting that he referenced this. It allows them to relive the experience, extending that dopamine high during what's called the cooling off period between crimes. And I believe that we see this trophy collection in the form of Celeste being left in the front trunk of David's Tesla. A lot of people feel like they just didn't know what to do with her. I think he did. I think that he, his need to have dominance and power over her outweighed the common sense, which would have been to get rid of her. Because think about it, if he had left her in some remote desert area, he could have just said, well, she ran away again. I don't know how she ended up there. So his inability to take her to a remote location and leave her there shows that he was, in my opinion, enjoying the sense of domination and control over Celeste by literally possessing her. So many SKs are high sensation seekers. The combination of adrenaline and dopamine from risky behavior also provide a rush that they struggle to get from their everyday life. And in my opinion, David had lots of opportunity to get adrenaline and dopamine from his everyday life. He was a rising music star. He had fans, lots of adulation and praise. So he had plenty of chances to get adrenaline. He had plenty of chances to get dopamine, but in my opinion, the more dopamine and adrenaline he got from his risky behavior, the more he wanted. And so David did purchase that burn cage and the chainsaw. Some people think it was, for plan B with Celeste. My theory is, and it's just speculation on this, but I think he did it. And the reason the burn cage was still in the box is that there was maybe going to be another victim. And I think that track 2, let's talk about that, which is the journal in his journal, which is Sky. So he says, Sky is a song inspired by Chicken Little. Ha ha ha. And at face value, it may sound like nothing more than a funny reference to the sky is falling, but I applied it to my own life and personal experience. Now, just keep in mind, he's writing allegedly about a relationship with a 13, 14-year-old girl. He writes, it's extremely draining to feel like the entire world is crumbling around you. Again, some distancing. It's not me, it's you. and the person or people in your life that are most important are drowning in ignorance to your situation because they don't want to understand the severity of what you're feeling. How much pressure did Celeste feel to know that she was literally drowning in his ignorance because she didn't understand the severity of what he felt? Why was all of this pressure being put onto a 13, 14-year-old? He continues. He said, it can even feel like you're in the wrong for feeling how you do, especially when those emotions are hard to explain. You feel like a letdown for not being able to keep up appearances or end up being patronized by someone you love because you can't keep it together. It's the absolute worst. And then a little sad face for himself. Poor me. And remember, I told you guys that I thought that David, portrayed himself as like the lone wolf and the bad guy, that it was Celeste's responsibility to make him good. But the fact that he's talking about how draining it is for him um, to have to be in a relationship and describes her drowning in ignorance to his situation is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this was a 13, 14-year-old girl. Of course, she's not going to be understanding any severity of anything that you're feeling. If you want that, if he wanted that, then he needed to have that with an adult. But again, what kind of psychological pressure must Celeste have been feeling toward the end of her life, you guys? So track 3, you left me first. Of course, again, David is the victim, right? He is the victim in all of this. And in this one, you're going to hear David complaining about Celeste, allegedly, in my opinion. Just know that he's talking about a 13, 14-year-old. And imagine just how much pressure psychologically, emotionally, she would have been about to this man-child who is complaining about how exhausting it is for him to have an illegal relationship with a minor. So he says, you left me first is a conceptual think piece of how I viewed my first relationship. Very contradictory to the title. In this relationship, I was the one who constantly had to detach myself and leave multiple times. I feel so sad for Celeste when I read this. I believe he was, abandoning her. And I think this would have given her panic because, again, she's relying on David for her emotional, her physical well-being at this point. 100%. Often being mistreated and emotionally neglected. Celeste was 13 or 14 years old, to the point where it felt like she was leaving me spiritually and emotionally. This is such a classic narcissist, in my opinion. Although I was the one who left physically, that I believe he ended the relationship physically. So I think that's interesting. The themes throughout the song talk about my struggles with trying to mend a broken relationship by myself. Me, and more me, with no effort from the other side, feeling as if there was no point in trying at all. Going through very high points and even lower low points. I mentioned in the song that she loved me at my best and I loved her at her worst. Ew. Just let that sink in. She loved me at my best. So I'm best. Remember that I showed you guys his Withered album where he's got himself higher than the other 3 people that are following him like a Pied Piper, right? She loved me at my best and I loved her at her worst. Just ew. Which basically sums up how exhausting that cycle was. Yeah, poor you, David. Constantly having to keep up appearances for her and put her first, while her lack of reciprocation was eating away at me until I couldn't take it anymore. I believe him when he says he couldn't take it anymore. But hey, that's love sometimes, I guess. No, that's not love. That's not love. That's predator, being a predator. So then we have track 4, Say It Back. Say It Back is such a powerful song for me and my growth as a person. The themes in this song deal more with unreciprocated love and unappreciated feelings. the more I hope the jury gets to hear this. I really do. The most universal response to someone saying they love you is saying, I love you too in return, or saying, I love you more, even if you got it like, ha ha. But to say, I love you and not hear it back is crushing, especially when you normally love the person you're saying it to. I'm usually very understanding person and I rarely hold a grudge. But in this situation, this song is based off of, I most definitely did. So says he's held a grudge because I guess at some point she didn't say it back to him. I didn't even really mean the words, so he didn't mean it. Maybe she knew that. Said, but sometimes it gets to a point where becoming numb to mistreatment doesn't work anymore. And I feel things. I feel them on such a strong level that it's hard to concentrate on what's important to me because I'm focused on what is important to the other person. Again, she's 13 or 14 years old. And it's me, I, how I feel. It's heartbreaking to think of what type of cycle Celeste would have been, this web of her being responsible for his well-being, his emotional well-being at her age. He said, my love languages is words of affirmation and acts of service. So the words and actions of other people I care about matter so much to me. I call this my song, my final attempt at trying to figure out what my real feelings are before solidifying them in friend again. And then another little face for himself. So I want to know what kind of acts of service he would have expected from a 13 or 14-year-old. What did he expect? What did he expect? And if you would like me to do more on this, there are this journal goes on and on like this. And if you would like me to continue on and do more, but I have some other things I want to dig into. So let's continue on. This came from NJAZ, our executive producer. This is from the D4VD 2 group. Let me move myself over here. And let me turn on the comments. Sorry, I forgot to turn on comments today. So said, notice this on another sub. I also got this. I got this from NJAZ, and I also got this from Master Death Hancock. And so you can see we've all seen this David painting on this black tarp. I'm really going to be curious if Celeste was wrapped in this black tarp when she was found. But what they're pointing to is this bandaged up number, the letter 4, which spells out the number 4, the number 6, and the number 7 in it, right? We've talked about that. And that's what the pointing out here is. So it says, I got this photo from another sub. I had never noticed before the circle sculpture in the background before. It's covered in bandages and more realistic looking blood. I wonder who made this. And Sugar Salt says the D4VD logo appears to be as a background on stage in a few of his streams. It was black before he wrapped it in paint covered bandages. And then Abs Blob says it could be a different one because I expect all his gig stuff to be kept in the same place for ease of transport. I work with blood quite a lot, and this is more realistic to the color of blood degrading over time. Remember, we heard rumors, I don't know if they're true or not, that law enforcement was investigating if he was using any portion of Celeste in any of this, in any of those shirts. And I'm not saying that it was all, because I do think it was red paint. But, was he using any other portion of Celeste in this, you guys? So now I want to go to a video that came out that I got sent this by Deanna today. And I just want to show you. Hold on one second. We're going to go through this next. Hold on. Let me put it up. Take this down. And put this up. So this is David in Baltimore. And what this really shows is that, it was Rob M that was there on a day-to-day basis, but it also shows what easy access David had. Yeah, like a mummy, right? 2 kids. Yeah. I want to thank NJS for gifting Reporter Room memberships. Wow, thank you, NJS. If you got one of those, please make sure you say thank you to NJS. That is so kind of you. And I also want to say thank you to NJS for gifting. Wow, you guys, 5 Reporter Room memberships. That is so kind of you, NJS. Thank you so. If you got one of those memberships, please make sure you say thank you to NJS. And NJS says, please consider joining the Reporter Room Facebook group. We discuss all true crime. Yeah, it is. It's messed up, you guys. And the people around D4VD are really messed up too. Rosa said he didn't like girls his own age. Right. Paw prints all. So she's asking for to give a thumbs up. All right. So this is from D4VD Gaming. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I just want to show you who his, let's move this forward. Who is around him. I'm going to turn the volume down because they are singing some. So this is David getting out of the car. This is Rob M. Did you see him? There's Rob M right there with the sunglasses on his phone with David getting out of the car to meet fans. So this is, he had access to kids. And I told you guys, I thought that his music was being marketed to kids. There's Rob M right there, just behind David. I just wanted to show you there's Rob M right there behind David. And then you can see these girls, how excited they all are to meet him. It's really scary when you think about the misogyny and the message that was being sent to females. It's really sad. And there's Rob M just, right there. David's manager. This is the one that had an attorney that was angry, wanting to know from Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman. According to him, he said she was being allegedly being reported out that she was being pushy about why he didn't call the police. So I think this is very telling that he had access to all of these kids. And these girls, it makes me sad that girls looked up to him. And here's those horrible shirts. Those absolutely horrible shirts. Rob M is going to pass them out now.
I brought you the marker.
You did
not the invisible ink.
So
what do you say? Wait, give me that.
Like indie, alternative, R&B, like a little bit of everything.
All right.
These are photos from.
And you can see they have the red on them. And so he's giving those away. So that's who these shirts were being marketed to, you guys. They were being marketed to kids. That's who his target. And this is David on stage crying for himself with all the Hello Kitty stuff. I don't even think it's probably real. And that, there's him all happy with paint on his face. Poor me. Poor me, and me. Bernie says, I went to sum one up to tell you Celeste had an M necklace, exactly the same as Josh Marshall. So do you think this is why Wikipedia's got a manager listed as a suspect, Bernice? Do you think it's related to this necklace? If you want to email it to me, let me post my email really quick. There's my email. If you want to email it to me, I will share it with everybody. Oop. Antonia Blingy seems like he was always lurking somewhere. Scandalous. Yep. It's really horrifying. And just the message that was being sent out to the kids, co-conspiracy with all his crew. Rosa said, holding the Hello Kitty. Yep. He's on stage fake crying. And then this is just really disturbing. And I told you guys, I thought he was telegraphing what he was going to do to Celeste. He posted that image of the two heads. And then right after that, hand holding the knife. That's one day before the final photo of Celeste was taken. Holly said, these kids are so vulnerable, even the boys, his bestie and their bromance. Yep. Antonia says she thinks that Rob is a pretender, in her opinion. Holly said, exactly, Shelley. And Jess says, if you have any tips, please email Jessica. Yeah, please do. Antonia says, fake breakdown. I agree. If you think he was crying on stage because he cares about Celeste, put a one in the chat. If you think David is crying on stage to get more attention for David, put a 2 in the chat. Let's just see where you guys are at. And K-Big says, right, looking. Antonia says, yes. So do you think he's crying for himself? Put a 1 in the chat. If you think he's crying because he really cares about Celeste, put a 2 in the chat. Jessica says, I saw a video of him earlier where he was gyrating his hips on a video chat with super young girls. Such a creep. Yep. For himself. For himself. A lot of 2s. 1, 1. 2, 2. Number 1. Number 1. Oh, no, it's number 1. And Jess says, yeah. 1 if you think it's for himself. 2 if you think he really cares about other people. If he really, was feeling bad about what happened to Celeste. 1, allegedly. Did I flip it? Did I goof you guys up? All right, let's do this. Put for himself and put for Celeste. Let's do it that way since I said it backwards. So if you think he's crying for himself, put for himself. If you think he's crying for Celeste, put for Celeste. Antonio says something is wrong with this whole crew, considering the fact that they would hide what he did and protect him just tells me that they would do. I think it was just anything for money, right? Shazza said 2 and hello, everyone. But it is what it is. Says please hit the like button as you come in. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Antonia put a 2. Eric says, trust me, David does not need a 13 to hype him. Well, I don't think that's what he was using her for. Cable, that's just my opinion. We are flipped. Yeah. All right. So let's try again. For himself. For himself. Antonia put a 1. Eric says, he has millions of sick women that love him. I think it's more kids than women. I don't think it's women, adults. I don't think most of his audience, I'm not saying any, but I don't think most of his adults were grown women. And Jessica said for himself. Antonia said, you said the opposite. I did. So that's why I'm correcting myself here. For himself. For himself. I'm sorry if I gooped you up. That's why I'm like changing the terminology. Hi, Lori. Thanks for modding today. Justice says himself. Himself. For himself. Not crying at all. Yeah, it could just be fake. Good point. Tammy thinks it's himself. Sophie says that he cried in his Houston tour. So this is, Antonia thinks it's for other people. Eric said David has a million of sick girls, women. John says himself. 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 But it is what it is over the situation overall. And just says, make sure to please hit the bell to be notified of upcoming videos. Yeah. Himself. I do have another video coming out tomorrow too on this. Corona dude put 1, so himself. Shazza says, I'm confused, but definitely for himself. There you go. I should have just said that. He's so selfish, is what Holly says. 2, himself. Okay, so himself. I think I said it backwards, so that's on me. And Antonia says, most definitely children, most adults probably didn't know who he was until this incident happened. I agree. I think his target market was kids, and you can see him being, just showing that he was being driven to a high school by his manager, Rob M. To me is very, very telling. So I do think it's not a coincidence that he's at a school with kids. I think that was his market, and the fact that they're giving out those horrible shirts and what the shirts represent, right? Which is his alter ego, Itami, spelled IT4MI, doing away with somebody. That's what those shirts represent, right? The shirts represent his alter ego, Itami. Thank you to Enjaz, our executive producer, and to our producers. Thank you, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Michael L. Cole, Christy Valentine, and Brenda Owens. And let me also do a thank you to our channel members. So come on in, tell me where you're from. If you're just joining me, You'll want to back up the chat. I showed a very interesting Wikipedia post today about the suspects in this case. And that was sent to me by Deanna that show that David Burke is listed as a suspect in what happened to Celeste. And the other name right next to David is manager. So we're trying to figure out, is it a typo? Is it one of the managers? Remember, the AI probably has more access to information than anybody else, but I don't know who posted this on Wikipedia. Who shared this. So I think it's very, very interesting. And super thanks and coffee gratitude too. Thank you so much for your super thanks and allowing me to cover this case, which is smaller and does tend to get. Let me just put the banner back up. All right. Let's go through some more comments. Yeah, we're waiting. A lot of people are so frustrated at alien babies because, we see other cases like the Michael McKee case, which I just did a video on today, where he's a surgeon and they were able to catch him. And then this one's so quick, less than 2 weeks, they have him and he's behind bars. He's without bail. We're seeing cases that have come after this that are like resolved, and we can't, get movement on this case. It's very, very frustrating. But what I think is going on is that this one is just a lot more in detail than what we knew. And Tony says, for sure, children, because he definitely couldn't fool adults. Tammy said, this case really needs to be solved and get justice for Celeste. Well, we know that they have their top prosecutor on it. The DA's office does. So I think that's good news for justice. Oh, let me turn the comments back on. I turned them off. We know that we have the top prosecutors on the case now. So hopefully we will get some movement on this. Let me know what you think. LA is slow. Yeah. Hopefully they're slow but methodical. I won't be mad that they're slow if they get a conviction. Sending you love too. Alien says, I was in FloJo's last night and one of the members of the Discord came out to say those messages were just trolling that went too far. I don't know which messages you're referencing. Eric says, it's annoying how long it's taking. If David didn't drive her around, he's still guilty of. I mean, yeah, and potentially, I think we know this has been characterized as a homicide investigation. So I don't think anybody thinks that I don't think the DA's office is going at this like this is some kind of bizarre accident, you guys. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Give this a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below.